You're live. Maybe I should button my butt. Not really necessary, but we'll do it anyway. Okay, the Bing Bang Bang. It's only been like less than a week or something since I posted the previous, maybe more than a week, 8 days ago. Okay, about a week since I got these boots in, and so I've barely worn them, but enough to give a first impression and get in another video for the end of Moc-TOE-BER. Yay! Because I probably won't do a video tomorrow, being Halloween and all. In the rotation, of course, this week, the only other boot has been the Wolverine 1,000 mile here in the rotation. For those of you who are keeping up with the 12-week challenge, 12 boots in 12 weeks, that is. But of course, I wasn't counting these as part of the rotation because they were a last minute sort of purchase, and well, not last minute, but an unscheduled, I guess, purchase that I could get in October to do the video just because there was coincidentally a sale going on, which they may or may not still be on sale, but I don't think so. But maybe, because I don't know, sometimes Bean has coupons and specials that aren't the ones that are the seasonal yearly ones or whatever. But that was a seasonal yearly sale, so I got some money off these. I'm just showing real quick because, again, I've been wearing them, and of course they're slightly modified, and I already did a video about these when they were new, and I haven't done a deep dive video yet about, you know, the crinkles and the creasings and the thing, but I did talk about them a little bit in a couple of the more recent videos. So this is not a video about that. I'm just mentioning it again for my 2 viewers who actually watch most of the content. Okay, and so without going too deep into all the stuff that we talked about in the unboxing, some stuff that I was curious about that I maybe got wrong. I don't remember everything I said, but I was talking about the interior lining a bit. I thought I was questioning whether that was insulated. I don't know if it's actually insulated, but this is not supposed to be the insulated model. And it is supposed to be waterproof, though, so I didn't want to wear them around too much. Same as the Keen now, same as the, whatever the other ones was, the waxed flesh Thursday ones and such. It's like, that way, if I do have a rainy day, I have something that I can go to that is supposed to be waterproof and test them out more. But I did still want to wear them a little bit and see how they would fit and how they would feel. And so in the course of the week, I was able to do that 3 times, maybe 4, I think 3. And so you can see they got a little bit of crinkling and a little bit of distress, but not like, you know, walking around kicking dirt and intentionally trying to put holes in them or whatever those patina guys do. I did kind of notice the padded collar a little bit more, you know, tightening the laces up around these speed hooks. My initial impression of the speed hooks being kind of hard to get the laces into a little bit. You have to kind of manhandle them a bit. I don't know how that's going to work over time if they will weaken and break, but they are pretty sturdy, I think. The main issue for me is kind of a two. Okay, stop doing this. Enough of the silly gimmick, right? As I explained, I had to buy the double E because they had the insulated in my size, but they had the non-insulated only in the wider size, and I don't usually like buying the wider boots because the heel is incorrect. The front is pretty close to correct, though. So if I had gotten the normal size, I think I would be more happy with the heel, but my toes might be getting a little smashed here. But in this case, I think I would prefer my toes getting a little smashed. Oh, you know what? I should have brought those other Carolina boots so I could really show you. Hang on. Oh, actually, good thing. Special guest star. The Wolverine, which are not a wide width, but kind of fit the same as the wide width. And I had talked about when I first got this boot that the heel did cup me more firmly and correctly than the Golden Fox does, but it still doesn't help some of the sloppiness up front. So if you want to see, I've done head-to-head videos with this and Golden Fox and some other videos. MOC-TOE-BER, yay, it's a MOC-TOE. But it's a MOC-TOE with more toe room than a lot of your MOC-TOEs, which is the appeal, but loses some of the appeal if, you know, it still fits a little too big or whatever. This one is right on the edge. The longer I wear it, the more I kind of sink into it and don't notice it most of the time. And worn, but certainly not worn out, even though I've had them for a while because I haven't been using them as work boots as much as guinea pig boots for the channel. So I won't go too deep into these either. And I haven't worn them this month, even though, well, maybe I did at first, but they were kind of slotted in. Anyway, to get back to talking about the leather itself, and I had, you know, talked about these Carolinas as, you know, kind of look cool, but really squishy, kind of thin leather. This leather is squishy, but it's definitely not as thin. So I don't want to give the impression that this is super flimsy leather, even though it's getting reinforced by this lining a bit. So what I'm having here is, even though it's right, my foot is right on here, it's pushing, it's not as supportive as I would like to be. And even those JK boots, same, that I didn't grab because I could only grab 2 at a time. Same kind of problem where, you know, once again, because the boots can flex out a bit. I don't know if you can see that really. Because it's reinforced here with the toe cap, but here it can still kind of smush a bit. And so it doesn't quite hold me, you know, in the ball of the foot or whatever, that part where your toes end and your foot begins, I guess. I would like a little more structure feel there. And again, I don't have that with too many boots really, except for the heavy duty ones, which I'm kind of getting used to, but don't want to use for everything. But certainly these are meant to be more outdoorsy boots where you would want that, you know. So like I said, I might still try and see about getting this reinforced, you know, something like that somewhere down the line. Maybe have a lineman thing done to the sides to give it more rigidity without having to redo the entire vamp or whatever, or the boot, the toe, all that. Might not need an entire rebuild. Might be able to get away with some kind of patch. These, on the other hand, the leather should be much more robust, even though it's still thin, because that's one of the supposed attributes of Kangaroo leather, is that it's tough, even though it's, but I also have the bison ones here with maybe same problem. I haven't really tested those out yet, yada, yada, yada. And so you can see where it's really kind of crinkling and everything falling in on itself already, which, you know, some people will think make the boot look cooler or whatever, I suppose, or feel more comfy or whatever, I suppose. I don't know. Like I said, for me, it's kind of going in the opposite direction of what I kind of want, which is a leather cast around my ankles and, you know, really, really holding me secure in the places where I'm worried on uneven terrain and such. So the jury's still a little bit out on that. But again, I don't know how much I'm going to wear these casually. But again, I'm probably never going to use these as hiking boots, all just based on that already. So I probably will use them mostly as casual boots. As far as this, I did notice myself. I mean, when I put my fingers in, you can't feel anything through the foam insole. But when it was underfoot at first, I felt like I was feeling these traction, I don't know, what do you call them, abutments or whatever, through the sole. And maybe that was psychosomatic or something, because I'm not sure that was what was really happening. I don't know. I mean, they're not meant to be worn on strictly on asphalt. So they are meant to be trail boots. So it's give and get, right? Would they be more comfortable on a real trail instead of the road? Yeah, probably, but they do lack, really more additional cushioning. I mean, there's nothing really, you can see there's nothing really between the boot and the outsole. There is no significant midsole. I think it would benefit from some kind of midsole. So I don't know if there's cork under here in the void or what they have in there. Maybe nothing. I doubt that there's a layer of leather, but there's something, typically under your insole. But with the lining and all that, and then there's a stitch along, whatever this kind of fabric or micro filler suede or whatever that bottom is. And then I literally am positive it's just rubber below that. So they are a little bit uncomfortable in that regard, again, helping me not have that feeling of support, because it's literally just this, then this. And like I said, this could be a little bit more thicker than that for my taste. As I said, I am finding myself kind of pulling them too tight, causing this kind of thing a little bit because of the wide, even though it's not too wide, but I'm trying to overcompensate for where it's a looser fit here. Because like I said, up here, there's nothing you can really do about it. It's not that they're too big and my foot isn't touching. It's that it's just not going to be firm. So I'm over tightening maybe slightly a little bit at first, but at least unlike with the smaller boots, I'm not having this, issue where you can't tighten it up at all. It's more like it stays out here. And you can only go so tight, same as like the chukka boots and that kind of thing. But it will squish up in the top a lot more easily because of the type of leather it is. So if you don't like the look or feel of that, again, the wide width curse. But see, these do that too. And these are closer to the correct size and still don't really fit me right, because these are not a wide width and they still fit almost like a wide width. So you can see the heel is bigger on the bean than the Carolina, so you can see why I'd be complaining about that when this one already feels a little too big in some spots. But like I said, since they didn't have any other options, and I don't really need the insulated ones because I already have the Georgia insulated ones and I'll probably put another insole in them or something and try and make them work. And I might even put in what I did with these, which is the heavy extra arch support version, since I have some extra ones of this, and see how that goes. See if it fills up more space or just feels more supportive, at least underfoot, even if it's not going to feel as supportive as I'd like on the sides of my foot. My left foot is killing me, but I don't actually think it's from these boots. I think it's actually from these boots. One of them definitely rubbed on the top of my toe and gave me a bit of a blister right now. And like I said, I don't think this was going to be the one that could pull that off and be the culprit, because this leather is a lot more, firm, stiff, actual leather. And it does have a toe cap as well. So I'm pretty sure I'm rubbing against the edge of this toe cap, not the Kangaroo. The Kangarooski. So yeah, like I said, this not being a MOC-TOE or anything at all, but just being a leather that I got that I was planning to wear a lot this season and then shelved them for some other boots until next time. Not part of the 12-week challenge either, but the sort of closest thing to this that I maybe sort of have. That, again, these work boots, not likely to want to take a wedge sole out in nature, and these being not quite enough eye holes and things to maybe secure it up as much. And of course, I prefer a taller boot if I'm hiking anyway. Although the modern hiking boots are more sneaker-esque and they're more 5 and 6 height. And those Keens are just like that with all the, synthetics and stuff, even though they're technically work boots, not hiking boots. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so what else am I saying about the bean that is bean specific? I don't know. Tech says tech 2 point whatever. I mean, it depends on your use case. Like if you don't have the same California terrain and you're, into, pheasants in the prairie or something, then it's probably a lot more closer to what you're looking for. And of course, if you're in a tree stand for 6 hours a day or something, you might actually need the insulated one, even though it might not be that cold, but you're just be sitting there, although you might have a 5-mile hike first or something. So I don't know, maybe you'll overheat with the insulated ones at first and then wish you had them, or vice versa. Everybody's situation is slightly different. Kansas and Oklahoma have different weather and terrain than parts of Pennsylvania and upstate New York and all that. So I can't, speak to every single scenario, and that's why Bean just makes this and says, take it or leave it, right? They have but like I said, this was a much less expensive version. Some of the more expensive brands that look a little more refined, might be a nicer boot overall, but essentially are still going to be, maybe it's more a true moccasin construction or whatever that means instead of the two piece, but there's still basically an outsole and a no midsole and a leather insole type of thing. So I don't imagine that dynamic has changed very much compared to other boots that I don't have in here. Let's see, then of course, this being a work boot and a logger boot, it also doesn't really have a ton of extra in there. There's a little bit of whatever's there because the welt is, the welt is looking a little more pronounced, so it's giving me the impression that there's a little more of a gap that might have some cork or something in the fill. But again, this insole is on top of the insole that's already in here that is not removable. It's glued in. And then when they get out to the toe area, is not very smushy. It's already been mostly flattened by wearing it. And so what's below that, not a whole lot, because I can feel where my finger is already. So there's a little bit of foam under this that's glued in. And then beneath of that, same basic thing. So it's not like there's a ton of cushion or anything else going on in these that is missing from these again. So could you use this as an Upland boot? It had the lugs that I removed, obviously. I suppose you could, although I imagine this leather to not be as durable as the Kangaroo. Again, that's what we'll find out when I do more heads. I wanted to do the Grant Stone versus this one for this video, the head-to-head thing, but I didn't get around to wearing the Grant Stone boots because, again, I wore these boots just to wear them for my other video challenge thing. So I kind of shortchanging you, I guess. But again, the Grant Stone boots have the wedge sole, which means I wouldn't take them out probably in the trail very much either anyway. So how they stack up is kind of irrelevant because the whole point I bought these is because they didn't have a wedge outsole. But again, how comfortable these will be, samey same. These were not quite half the price of these. And again, the leather probably not as good. So one of those head-to-heads I'll try and run a little bit maybe in the next, I don't know about next month. Next month being what, Saturday? but soon. So because I do want to go back to wearing these a bit and seeing how they do. But the 12-week thing wraps up before Christmas one way or the other. So 2 months, 1 month, who knows? Figure it out. How much hiking I get to do between now and then, I don't know, because we keep getting warmer weather, but I could go tomorrow maybe. But I can only wear one pair of boots hiking. I'm not carrying 3 pairs of boots with me and changing them every 2 miles or something. I could do that with one lightweight pair maybe, but kind of not really, conducive and all that. Don't hold your breath. we'll see how it goes. I don't have any cemented plans for the actual morning. Tomorrow, I could be hiking right now, I guess, if I had thought about it, but instead I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm going to totally stop making this video now since I don't know who's going to watch this video. But like I said, I just did this unboxing 8 days ago, so I talked a bit about, all the little details and stuff that is really not much to go into again now. Like, you can see where the rows of stitching are. You can see it as a slightly different heel kind of counter thing than the more refined Gokis and Easy Mocs and Russells and all that kind of thing. They're not the exact same boots as some of those other brands. And I was fine with that. I know they don't look quite as elegant. I know they're a little more robust. But again, a boot I could slot in for, I don't know about cold weather, but autumny, wet-ish weather or whatever. I don't usually get a lot of wet weather on the trails, and some of the trails they close if they think they're going to be flash floods and that kind of thing anyway. Okay, as always, if you have any questions, put them in the comments and I will try to answer whatever I forgot to say or think or do and all that. And unfortunately, we're wrapping up early. I didn't get my Nix boots in yet. I didn't even get a confirmation email for production yet, even though I returned them back in July. So again, MOC-TOE-BER, maybe one episode. But I did make that video in July of the unboxing of those Nix MOC-TOE boots, which again would be more of a comparison with the Grant Stone boots probably than some of these other ones. Although, well, technically they're logger boots again, but this one should be, have more heel stack on them, but I sawed that off last summer or whatever. I did see a video recently where the guy was complaining about the Carolina boots that they had stitched, not just the toe, but they had stitched all the way around the lugs. And he was saying that looked like shoddy workmanship to him and stuff. They were just a stitched down construction instead of a welted construction because he bought a slightly more expensive version of a Carolina boot that's meant to be more similar to the Pacific Northwest logger boots. But what other features it has, I don't know. He didn't go into that, which would have been helpful. So I don't know what model they were, but this was the Elm model for those of you who are curious. And they're not my first recommendation for a logger boot. For anybody who didn't watch my other previous 2 or 3 videos about the Carolina Elm boots or the other logger boots, which of course are a slightly different use case scenario than, the more urban work boot with, again, the cushiony sole. And of course, this, for those of you who don't know, is a service style boot, which is modeled more after a 1940s army boot than a high heel logger boot or a wedge sole boot or anything else. This is, but also again, standard more 6-inch height, yada yada yada. These being, I think, more of an 8-inch. They're meant to be 8-inch, something like that, 8 or 9, somewhere in there. The padded collar makes it look a little beefier. So yeah, I'd say this is closer to a 9 probably. Okay.